Okay, that's Kenyapa. Okay, Kiampia. Please, I hope I pronounced your name right. Kiampia Katuk.
It's Kenpia Katuk.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me.
Kenpia
Katuk. Okay. So Kempia Katuk is a lawyer, a social justice and gender advocate. She is an active member of the Nigerian Bar Association and International Federation of Female Lawyers. She's also a Girls Get Equal campaigner and the founder of the Girl to Women Development Initiative, an organization that seeks to promote the empowerment of adolescent girls and young women to realize their rights and reach their full potential. Kempia is passionate and she's passionate about governance and women's rights. Please, can we give a virtual clap for Kempia? I really love your name. Okay, and now we're going to our next beautiful speaker. It's so amazing to see women doing so much. It's so amazing. Now, our next speaker is Etta Jomaria. Etta Jomaria is a Nigerian actor, producer, model, and gender equality advocate. Etta's personal work have crossed international borders to be featured in Allure magazine, Teen VAWG, on Kenyan Airways, and used as a symposium tool by the French ambassador to Nigeria to support the role of civil society in promoting women's rights in Nigeria. She's actively playing her part to galvanize advocacy efforts for the rights of women and girls, as her short film, which sheds light on sexual harassment and its effect, is set to screen at the French Institute in Nigeria as part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And through her partnerships with organizations over the years, she is extremely passionate about acting and social impact. She is a Gen Z pace setter and a woman to watch, definitely a woman to watch. I look forward to watching her short film, her short play. Thank you all so much, beautiful ladies. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Okay, now we're going to be starting our first. Okay, please, Margaret.
We should start with our first speaker, which is Datin JJ.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm trying to put up my slides here. My presentation.
Okay, let me permit you. Sorry.
Well, I haven't done it before, so I know even if you permit me, I'm going to struggle.
Okay, you just try.
Did you permit me?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Okay, please.
Can I just go ahead?
You can just start. Why I fixed that for you.
Okay, so she's introduced me. I work for Rausa, which is based in Egypt. It works for the scope of our work encompasses the whole of MENA region, including Sudan and Turkey. And we also go into humanitarian context countries like Libya and Sudan also because it's experiencing protests. So my first point was on describing GBV in one word. So I just came up with abuse. That's the word that I could come up with that encompasses all of LGBTQ. The abuse is behavior used to intimidate, harm, isolate, dominate, or control other person. So abuse, I've used that word to describe GBV because it encompasses actions, words, and neglect. It may be a pattern of occurrences or a single isolated event. And abuse can be sexual.
Sorry, Jane.
Yes?
Okay, so you can share now.
Oh, shit. Which link can I click into?
Please go down to your
use
screen.
Use the share button on your screen, please.
It says, new share.
Okay, All right, let me try it. Sorry. I've got two screens here, sorry. So I have to go where she. I'm trying to find it. Where exactly? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, where is it exactly?
Are you sharing from a laptop screen or a phone screen?
Oh, it's confusing me. Sorry. Let me leave the phone screen.
Okay. Now, please ensure that the Zoom link is on your system.
I cannot find the share button. I'm sorry.
I actually think you could just go on if you could read it.
It will make sense more if I put it up.
Okay, so what you do is you connect you load the Zoom link. Yeah, she has to load the Zoom link on her system, on her laptop, for her to be able to share the content. Yes.
Okay, I don't. So can I just go on?
Yes, you can. It has to be the same device. You have to be the link has to be shared to your laptop for you to be able to share on Zoom.
No, it wasn't shared here because it's a host disabled participant sharing, screen sharing. That's what it's saying.
Okay, so could you send the slides to your phone from which you are speaking? If you could send it to your phone, then you could share from your phone.
That's going to take a while.
Yes.
Yeah, because I have to send it on my email or through WhatsApp web.
That's exactly how it's usually done.
Okay, I'm just saying it's going to take a while.
Okay, Margaret, can we give her a few minutes to do it and start another speaker so she could get her slides?
That would be better.
Yes, Tatiana, you've been permitted to share. So once you send the link of the Zoom to your system, you could connect directly from your system. Your system will come into the Zoom meeting as a separate entity from your direct phone.
Okay.
Please.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jane, can you see the share screen now? It's green.
Yeah. She's trying to send it to her. Her slides are not on her phone. They are on her system. So she's trying to send the link to her system so she could connect to send it. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's coming on now.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. It says you have started screen sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Can I go ahead now? Is it fine?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so as I was saying, I work for Rosa Mena. Its work is, this is going to confuse me. I work for Rosa, which is headquartered in Egypt, and the scope of our work encompasses the whole of MENA region, including Turkey and Sudan. So I was describing abuse in one word, I was describing GBV in one word, which I came up as abuse. Am I making sense here?
Yes, you are, Tatenda. Please go ahead.
So abuse is behavior that encompasses actions, words, and neglect, and may be a pattern of occurrences or a single isolated event. So abuse can be sexual, physical, verbal, spiritual, emotional, financial, and neglectful, as well as psychological in nature, which all describes GBV when it's inflicted on, especially women. And especially women. So the forms of gender-based violence that is occurring in the MENA region it's quite a lot. There are various forms of GBV violence that are occurring, which include domestic violence, female genital mutilation. There's a report actually that I was reading by Tamkin Association that says female genital mutilation accounts to maybe 87% in Egypt of females between the ages of 15 and 49. And that's according to the 2017 data. So another form of violence of GBV is early and child marriage. And in Egypt, it's recorded that about 17% of girls between the ages of 20 and 24 are married before the ages of 18. And that's according to a report by the United Nations UN Women in 2018. And there's also intimate partner violence and violence committed by institutions or the state. And moving on, we find that there are various contributing factors of GBV. Those are cultural norms, especially in the MENA region. Culture is something that it's like the ruling factor. Culture is something that is followed strictly by many countries in the MENA region. So due to these cultural norms, the main factor is that it is acceptable for males to subject females to acts of violence as the males deem necessary. And the other contributing factor is the media's portrayal of violence is acceptable in these communities, and this contributes to a major problem. And the other factor is that the perpetrators of GBV are not put to book. So victims and survivors of GBV have a rational fear of engaging in the legal and security systems of the country due to the continued history of failing to prevent or to protect women who report abuse and violations. So there are a lot of effects of GBV in the MENA region. These because our organization focuses mostly on sexual reproductive health and rights, the effects that I have pointed out here are mostly to do with this, and these include increased sexual and gender-based violence, forced and unwanted pregnancies, unsafe abortions, early and child marriages, HIV/AIDS, STIs, and increased risk of maternal mortality. The regional challenges that we have faced when trying to address GBV are the issue of underreporting. So underreporting is actually due to caused by social stigma, where victims and survivors of GBV hesitate to report incidents and believe that nothing can be done. So they are mainly afraid to fear the violence from perpetrators and do not trust the services due to fear of confidential breach. And the other one is the attitudes and social and cultural norms. I've mentioned this before, but then the cultural and social norms are major problems, and they actually constrain our ability to address GBV properly. Because the social norms actually, they blame the women mostly who experience GBV. Mostly like they victimize the women because they can give excuses like she was out alone, like she's working outside from home. There's silly excuses that help them victimize the women. And along this, there's this gender discrimination and schema that prioritize protecting family honor. And this also contributes to underreporting, the issue of protecting the family honor over the safety of well-being of the survivor. And it also encourages the institutional and social acceptance of GBV as normal. In addition to this, there is a lack of information generally. Because incidences are underreported. So that means there's no information out there available to the public regarding the consequences of GBV and the availability of potential legal and social support services for the survivors. Another issue is the low availability of services. Like victims and survivors of GBV, actually, especially women, there are not available services with regard to family planning, maybe, and maternal health services. So a report by Tamkin Association actually shows that 10% of facilities in Egypt are well prepared to address GBV, and only a fraction of the health facilities surveyed in all of 27 governorates in Egypt had private examination rooms, and only 2% of facilities had a protocol in place for GBV care. And then the last point is that the MENA region is mostly prone to instability, various economic and political instabilities, and like in Libya and Sudan, where there's currently protests going along. So these constrain our ability to successfully intervene in communities to address the GBV problem. And moving forward, what we've done so far as RAWSA is we're currently working on a project in Sudan and Libya with a focus on refugee camps and internally displaced people's settlements. So here we've conducted community and radio campaigns just to provide awareness about the implications of GBV and to also promote and to increase knowledge about the available services that they can approach to get help. And we've noticed that here in Sudan and Libya, GBV prevention mechanisms from the government as well as from international organizations are actually low because they're mainly focused on addressing other matters such as the human rights violations going on during these protests that are occurring in the country. And the other problem and the other issue that Rosa wants to actually look into is helping health practitioners to change their attitudes so that they can help the victims of GBV violence accordingly, because sometimes their attitude and their facilities are not well equipped enough to help these people. Like I mentioned before that in Egypt, the facilities are not well equipped to address this issue. Okay, so yeah, that is all from my side.
Well, thank you, Jane. That was wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Stop share. I'm removing share now.
Yeah, you can stop sharing. Okay, so before we move on, I don't know. I want us to interact too. That was a very beautiful presentation for Tatenda about GBV in their area, in their community, and what they are doing so far. It's a very beautiful work, and I must really commend that. Well done, Jane, and your team too, at World Next. Okay, so I want you all to share with us, how you are feeling about today's events. What is your feeling? Share with us. Let us rub mind together. Like I say, it's going to be an engaging and interesting moment. But of course, we should know how everybody is feeling. And please, when you are feeling the issue, also put your name. I'm sharing a link on the chat box, so you can visit there to tell us how you are feeling. Okay. So, and if you have any question or contribution, or you want to answer a question, you can visit this next link that I'm sharing right now to make your contribution or to ask a question. We are going to ask this question during the panelist section too. So whatever question you have after what the speakers are saying, you can just file it up or put it up there for us. We will be able to ask the speakers during the panelist section. Thank you. Fritz, you can go on and introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Satenda, for an awesome presentation. It was so beautiful. Okay, next we'll be having Kenyapa. I think I got Kenyapa, right? Is that the name again? I just really want to get your name right.
It's Kempia. Yeah.
Kempia. Okay. Okay, so we'll be having beautiful Kempia next. She is a lawyer, a social justice and gender advocate. She's an active member of the Nigerian Bar Association, which means she knows the law, and the International Federation of Female Lawyers. She's also a Girls Get Equal campaigner and the founder of Girl to Woman Development Initiative, an organization that seeks to promote the empowerment of adolescent girls and young women to realize their rights and reach their full potential. She is passionate about governance and women's rights. Now, please let's put our virtual hands together for Kempia as she comes to make her presentation. Applause, everyone. Applause, applause. Kempia, are you there, please?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Kempia.
Morning.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the panel. I'll go straight to the point because I only have 10 minutes. One of my tasks was to describe gender violence in one word, and I'll describe it as a norm. I'm describing gender-based violence as a norm because it constitutes beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors of individuals. And when we talk about beliefs and attitudes and behaviors of individuals, that has to do with, physical violence, verbal violence, emotional violence, economic or social abuse that has been directed against a person based on their gender or based on their gender, basically. And GBV also involves different forms of abuse, which includes women battering, marital rape, incest, forced prostitution, violence against domestic workers, violence against girls, traditional violent practices such as female genital cutting. We have a lot of that in my community. Gender-based violence can happen to anybody, regardless of their age, their social or economic status, their ethnic background. Even though we know that it largely affects females, but males are also victims and survivors of gender-based violence. So I'm going to the source of gender-based violence in my community. And one of the sources of gender-based violence in my community is patriarchal structures. We have a lot of customs, we have a lot of traditions, we have a lot of religious systems that actually form the way that people believe and form our attitudes and behaviors. And then we also have issues of upbringing. People have been brought up in different ways. There are people who grew up seeing their parents become violent, and so it has caused a ripple effect on them as well. So because they were brought up in a home where they went through, so they saw their parents abuse each other, so it's just the same ripple effect. And then I'm going to talk about the forms of gender-based violence in my community. The most frequent ones, I know that a lot of times when people are talking about gender-based violence, they only think about domestic violence, but then we have issues of hate speech when people put you down in private or in front of others. We also have issues of when people make comments or jokes about women, or, you know, present women as sex objects. I think a lot of times we trivialize such issues, but then those are also forms of gender-based violence. We also have when people ridicule women, when people make jokes about sexual availability, prostitution, or rape. When people make jokes about rape, they could say, oh, things like, oh, she was enjoying it, you know, things like that. Those are very, very common in my community. We also have issues where persons are being denied of basic education, like where a girl is not allowed to go to school because she's female, and then a boy actually goes to school instead. We also have issues where a woman is being prevented, like where you're preventing or controlling a woman's finances, a woman's access to financial resources, for instance, where you prevent her from working, or you're preventing her from having a source of income, or you're controlling her wealth or income, or you're giving little or no allowance or financial aids. We also have issues where the man in the family puts all property or joint income in his name only, leaving the woman with nothing to survive in situations of separation or divorce. We also have issues where a man refuses his spouse or partner from attaining education so that she can be put in a situation of economic submissiveness towards the man. We also have issues where a man prevents his spouse from seeking a job that may be better paid off than their job. And then we also have, in my community, we also have issues of son preference, where, you know, sometimes people prefer to say, oh, I want a son, I don't want a girl as a child, I prefer to have a son, things like that. We also have issues of stalking, controlling, or abusive behavior. You know, I would give an example of controlling behavior. Could be, you know, where somebody is calling you constantly to ask you, where are you? And, you know, things like that. I mean this in a very unhealthy way. You know, when someone constantly stalks you, that is a form of gender-based violence. We also have issues of online bullying. On social media these days, you see a lot of people make derogatory comments on people, and sometimes people say a lot of terrible things about people online, and that is actually a source of gender-based violence, but I think a lot of people don't know. We have issues of workplace harassment. Women rarely report workplace harassment because most times they are scared of losing their jobs or being ridiculed by colleagues, so they don't report these issues. So, and most times, you know, when women go through workplace harassment, it destroys their confidence or self-esteem. Then finally, we also have body shaming. People body shame, people see you and they call you fat or they call you thin. And we are not aware that a lot of times people are dealing with health challenges that could probably lead to weight loss or weight gain. We have times where women are dealing with postpartum depression. Like, there are just so many issues that could lead to, you know, people adding weight or people losing weight. So those are forms of gender-based violence in my community. Some of the effects of gender-based violence include mental health disorders like depression and anxiety, we have also increased guilt or self-blame. We have people find it very difficult in forming relationships with others. People lose their self-confidence. They lose their self-esteem. It's also, one of the effects also is sexually transmitted disease, physical injuries, and generally, gender-based violence has prevented the full advancement of women, and it's actually a social mechanism through which women are put into subordinate positions. So I'm going to go straight to why gender-based violence should be halted. Gender-based violence should be halted so that we can have a sane society where everyone is respected. Gender-based violence should be halted so that we can have happier families. Gender-based violence should be halted so that we can have healthy relationships at all levels. That is, at national level, at local level, or whatever level, wherever you find yourself. Gender-based violence should also be halted so that we do not reproduce the same elements on our children. For instance, if a father or a mother is abusive, it's almost automatic for the child to be equally abusive when they grow up. As we know, children learn from what they constantly see, not what you tell them. Gender-based violence should be halted so that it can curb poverty. And then lastly, gender-based violence should be halted so that women are able to contribute to national development. So I'm going to go to what our organization, Child and Youth Protection Foundation, what we're doing to stop gender-based violence and violence against women. Our organization does a lot of work on child protection. We offer capacity building to religious institutions, to schools, workplaces, communities on all forms of violence, all forms of GBV that can affect children, be it physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, neglect. We offer those services. We also partner with organizations and other development partners who provide psychosocial support or legal support to survivors of gender-based violence. We also do a lot of awareness creation on raising healthier children and youth. Some of our challenges have been that, well, there has been a slow implementation of policies like the National Gender Policy in Nigeria and the Child Protection Policy. And then we have also discovered that a lot of organizations and homes do not factor the protection of their families in their work. Let's say, for instance, let me give an instance of a home. Maybe you always have people in your house. A home is actually required to have a child protection policy. Every home is supposed to have a child protection policy. Every organization, every religious institution is supposed to have a child protection policy that would protect children against any form of gender-based violence whatsoever. We also have issues of underreporting. A lot of times people go through forms of violence and then they are not reporting, or they don't even know where to report to. Also, I know that NAPTIP is doing quite a lot when it comes to issues of gender-based violence. And the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, they are also doing their best, but I would suggest that it would be nice if we have synergy in what we do in Nigeria. Like if everything was just, if we just had like a singular reporting template for reporting all forms of gender-based violence, and as opposed to organizations doing things differently. Also, one of the challenges that we also have is there is no availability of services for survivors of gender-based violence. For instance, like a refuge for women who are survivors of gender-based violence, let's say a home where they can be, where a home or a shelter where they can be taken to. We don't really have that, but I know that FIDA actually has, I think they are working on something like on having a shelter for women who are survivors of gender-based violence. And there's also an absence of lack of psychosocial support for survivors of gender-based violence. Yes, there's no psychosocial support. So we really need people who are going to do a lot of capacity. I don't know how to put this. They're going to do a lot of work around creating a threshold for people who are victims of gender-based violence, because most times when a person goes through gender-based violence, there's a threshold for psychosocial support, and that usually takes about 6 months or so before somebody can actually recuperate from that situation and then be reintegrated into the society. It's not enough for you to go through gender-based violence and then just relax, and or maybe once you go through gender-based violence and then you get justice, that's not enough. A lot of times you have to go through a threshold of psychosocial support before you can actually be normal. And then I would recommend that there needs to be more awareness on gender-based violence and what it constitutes, because the truth is a lot of times we trivialize so many things, and a lot of things have become normal, you know, especially things like online bullying. Like, it's so common now, but people don't know that they are not just supposed to comment about people anyhow, or, you know, give any sort of hate speech, or, you know, different things like that. So I think that there needs to be more awareness about gender-based violence and what it constitutes. And then the government would need to implement these policies, especially policies like the National Gender Policy, policies on child protection, the gender policy. Basically, they need to implement that. And then I also feel we need to strengthen our laws so that perpetrators do not walk freely. So those are my 2 cents. And I hope that you are convinced about gender-based violence. Thank you.
Because we are convinced, not confused. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, Rita is still there.
Yes, I am.
Yes, we are.
Okay, Kempia, thank you so much. It was really insightful. You took your time to really go into it. And it's awesome to know that we have lawyers who are really standing out, not just out for their pockets, but out to see that the right thing is done. Okay, so our next speaker now is Etta Jomaria. She is a Nigerian actor, producer, model, and gender equality advocate. Etta's personal works have crossed international borders to be featured in Allure magazine, Teen Vogue, on Kenyan Airways, and used as a symposium tool by the French ambassador to Nigeria to support the role of civil society in promoting women's rights in Nigeria. She's actively playing her part in to galvanize advocacy efforts for the rights of women and girls, as her short film, which sheds light on sexual harassment and its effect, is set to screen at the French Institute in Nigeria as part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And through her partnerships with organizations over the years, she's extremely passionate about her acting and social impact filmmaking. Etta is a Gen Z pace-setter and a woman to watch. Please, can we put our virtual hands together for Etta Jomaria as she comes to make her presentation? Hi, Etta, are you with us?
Hello, Etta.
Good morning. And she's also very beautiful. I have to add that fact.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You're beautiful yourself, Faith. Thank you so much for spearheading this. Before I start, I think there's a comment from someone here. The person is speaking French and they're saying, nous sommes des pas français, francophone. Il n'est pas un interprète français. I understand French, but I can't speak. That's the problem.
That's also my problem.
So this is I think it's something the organization should look into for next time. Maybe we should find a way to see
Yeah,
out
sure. Yeah,
everyone.
sure.
And I want to say a very big thank you to Tatenda and Kempia. I hope I got the name right. Actually, these are really beautiful names. I think Kempia is Nigeria. Kempia, I would love to know where in Nigeria you come from. Thank you so much for that, for the detailed presentation. I have a question for Kempia that I'll just drop before I start my presentation. I would love to know if there are laws, especially in Nigeria, that protect women, active laws that protect women, who are victims or victors of gender-based violence. You don't have to answer now when I'm done with my presentation, but I'd just love you to kindly ponder on that. They have said a lot, to be honest, and now I'm wondering, what am I gonna say? But obviously, there's a lot. GBV, I'm also supposed to talk on the things or the points that Kempia actually shed light on like describing GBV, the sources of GBV, the forms that it takes, and what my organization is doing to, see to it that things are better for victors or victims. GBV is any type of harm that is perpetrated against a person, in this case, a woman or a girl, because of their factual or perceived sex, gender, sexual orientation, or identity. And in this case, it is a violence that affects us women disproportionately, and it includes physical violence, psychological violence, sexual violence, socioeconomic violence, domestic violence, and sexual harassment that we are aware of. The socioeconomic violence has to do with, political violence as well. That is obviously not talked about, where women, sometimes have to drag just to have equal representation in politics. That's something that is not talked about enough. And physical violence, of what we know about as domestic violence, and sexual violence, of what we have come to know about as sexual harassment. And the sources of GBV, I'm not done. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. The sources of GBV and the forms that it takes, especially in my community, is, the effect of sexual harassment that is never talked enough. Catcalling, on inappropriate words that people use to other people. Like literally yesterday, I was accompanying a friend who was looking for something, and I was just walking on the streets, and this guy just grabs my arm like I'm owing him money. And the next thing he says is, I want to talk to you. And I literally broke loose. I'm like, excuse me, can't you see I'm walking? This is something that happens every day. This is something that happens every time, especially given the terrain that we're in, especially in Lagos. I live in Lagos, Nigeria. This is something that happens all the time. When you're walking on the street, sometimes they say it's because of what you're wearing. Sometimes they say it's because of how you're dressed. But I promise you, there are days where I wear a maxi dress that is literally covering my neck, and I still get people screaming my name or calling me, like, making sounds, like very unpleasant sounds, or saying things, trying to hold my hands and all of that, just to be able to talk to me. So I feel like these are forms of violence that are not talked enough. These are forms of violence that people, like a lot of people, don't even have the proper education to know what is right or what is wrong, especially the perpetrators. Because obviously for us women and girls, who the violence is the victors. I don't like to use the word victim, so I would please use the word I would say victors in this case. Especially for us, the victors, we already know what violence is. We already know what is inappropriate towards us. We want to be able to have the liberty and freedom to be able to, live life as human beings, as women, and proudly do so. You want to be able to have the freedom to walk on the streets as normal people without being called out at, without being held or touched inappropriately. We want to be able to look good and dress as we would love, as we are comfortable in our skin, especially without being hazed at or without being catcalled and all of that. Want to be able to be in a situation where there are equal pays and equal opportunities for us as there are for men as well. So these are all forms of violence that are prevalent, especially in my community. Why it should be halted? I mean, the other speakers have already spoken about the psychological effect of what this does and the physical effect and all of that. But I would like to especially ponder on the psychological effect. Such violence leaves women insecure, leave women uncomfortable and not confident in themselves as people. You find out that no matter how, Kempia spoke about, how people who are going through a lot, you don't even know what is the reason for someone looking fat, or you don't know what the reason is for someone looking slim. And then they get catcalled and they get spoken about, or derogatory words being thrown at them and all of that. For people who undergo sexual harassment, the fact that you are able to hold yourself, to put yourself together, to wear whatever you want to wear or whatever you feel comfortable in your skin wearing, and then you go out and experience sexual harassment, and you're seeing people grabbing your arms and holding you and touching you and all of that, is enough to put you in a state of mental, to give you mental health issues. It's enough to give you trauma. It is enough, and I feel like the reason why I keep hampering or hitting on sexual harassment is because, especially in this terrain where rape has become so prevalent, people feel like if you are not raped, then you are not in harm's way. That's what a lot of people feel. I'm saying this to use my short film as an example. When the script first came out, I sent it to a few writers here and there to proofread, to make sure that it's up to standard. And I got feedback, interestingly, from a woman, and she was telling me, oh, how will somebody have trauma from sexual harassment, from people just touching her and calling her? Why can't she be raped? Let them rape her. Let them take her into the bush and rape her. And at that point, I was so disappointed and sad, because there's something that happens psychologically to a person who is grabbed without their consent. There's something that happens psychologically to a person who is even catcalled, who walks on the street and somebody speaks to them inappropriately. The next time you realize that they'll probably not even, when they're trying to wear the same thing that they probably wore, they'll have to rethink it. And it'll bring shivers down their spine. Because it is from this catcalling, it is from this inappropriate or derogatory words, towards a person, that it now gets to rape. So it is of equal importance, and it should be treated, with equal forms and equal ways that it should be curtailed. But a lot of people don't know this. They feel like, why are you even disturbing people if people are calling you Nia? You to insult them back, or you to talk back at them. But what if you are not even in the mental capacity to do so? What if you're not even in the mental capacity to save yourself, or to stand up for yourself and speak for yourself and call out the person as well and say, stop talking to me that way? I'm lucky enough to, have that confidence enough in myself to know that I should always stand for myself. I should always speak for myself. But I promise you, out of 100% of girls and women, I think it's just, let's say, 10 to 15% who are able to do so, who are able to stand up for themselves. So I would like all of us to, leave this conference today with this mindset that every form of violence is, there. Every form of violence against a woman or against a young girl should be treated as important as the other. If two girls come to you today and come to AGE especially and say, oh, this one says I was raped. Oh, this one said, oh, I have traumatic experiences because someone was talking to me anyhow, someone was holding my hand. The truth is, given the terrain or the society that we are in, obviously, rape obviously has their consequences and all of that. Maybe people might want to rush the person who was raped just because the person was raped. Because it is rape that we've been screaming about. But I promise you, the psychological effects that sexual harassment also leaves on the person, domestic violence also leave on the person, is as important as rape. Before I move to what my organization is doing, I would love to suggest various forms you know, of trying to get back. What let's say you're not, even if you are not a victim, you know, a victor, sorry, you know someone who is a victor, how best, you know, they can get back to themselves, especially if they've been harassed sexually or they've gone through any form of sex. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
yes, we
I,
can.
yeah, I don't know what happened, but it
Yes, we
went,
can hear you.
the connection went up a little bit. Yeah. So can I go on, Fade?
Yes, you
Yes,
can.
yes, you can, please. Yes, you
Okay.
can, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would love to, you know, talk about the importance of therapy and the importance of speaking to someone when you are in a position, or you know someone else who is in a position of, you know, being who has been violated, or who has gone through gender-based violence, be it rape, be it sexual harassment, be it domestic violence, of gender-based violence, totally of any sort. I would love to hammer on the importance of speaking out. You know, if you can't speak out for yourself, the importance of speaking to someone who, you know, can probably be there for you and hold your hand at a point, in that point of need, because you are in harm's way and you're in a point of need, whatever form of gender-based violence that you've encountered. It is very important to speak to someone. Don't hold it in. Don't say, oh, okay, I'm fine. Oh yeah, it wasn't that serious. I will be fine. You will be fine, but it is important that you know that you are not alone in this fight. You're not alone in this struggle. So it's important. Therapy is important. I mean, you don't have to go spend a lot of money. You know, there are people who, for example, people like Kempia, you know, she's the lawyer, and she knows she doesn't just have the heart for this cause. She also have the know-how. You know, she has knowledge, you know, about laws that, you know, govern things like this, and that, and how, you know, perpetrators can be brought to book. So that's somebody you can talk to. You know, you can talk to Tatenda and her organization. You can talk to people like me. You can come to AGE Network and make sure that, you know, you find a way or an outlet that you can be heard, and find a way or an outlet that, you know, you can know that you are not alone. I'm so sorry. I don't know if I've even finished my 10 minutes, but I'm supposed to have another meeting and they're coming to me. So I'll quickly wrap this up. For my organization, I am a filmmaker. I'm a social impact filmmaker. The film that, you know, was being talked about, that was just used recently as a symposium tool at the French Embassy and the French Institute of Nigeria, is titled Strength of a Woman. It sheds light on, you know, the effects of sexual harassment and the importance of therapy, you know, using a lady whose life was changed just from a sexual harassment encounter. And I've also done something about rape as well. And I've also collaborated with a few other filmmakers to do things on domestic violence. So this is where my heart is. You know, people these days, people get tired of reading things. People sometimes even get tired when we're talking like this. Seems like, oh, maybe they're talking too much. But I promise you, visual aid is very important. That's why I actually really love what Tatenda did, that, you know, she actually had a visual aid presentation. That was really helpful. Thank you so much. You know, visual aid is very important. That's why I have decided to use film as an outlet, you know, to be able to tell our stories, to tell stories of gender-based violence. People watch films all the time. You know, they laugh at comedy, they watch things that, you know, especially Nigerian movies, and here the patients suffer and all of that. But imagine when you are able to use film, that very outlet that gives people joy, that makes people laugh and makes people happy, and you're able to use it to also infuse, you know, that factors of comedy, factors of entertainment here and there, but also at the end of the day, use it to pass a very strong message. That is what I'm about. I'm about using film as a tool to tell our messages, using film as a tool, and, you know, to bring, so that's what social impact filmmaking is, to bring social impact filmmaking to life. So for the short film that I did, you know, I plan on, you know, partnering with AGE Network to see how we can use this film as a symposium tool, you know, to teach women, to teach young girls, you know, during we've already had like conversations, you know, during their events and all of that, to see that once they see that a character, characters in movies are always very revered and looked up to and all of that. Once they see that a character has gone through the same thing that they have gone through or they are going through, or someone they know is going through, and that character can come out of it and come out victoriously, then it gives them hope automatically to be able to know that, yes, I can do it. Yes, my sister can do it. Yes, I have a friend who went through sexual harassment, or who has undergone sexual harassment, or who has undergone rape, or who has gone through something similar. Yes, they can come out stronger. Yes, I can talk to someone, and coincidentally, the person has probably gone through even a much more worse situation. And then we can tap strengths from each other. So this is what I'm about. And, there are little challenges here and there, challenges of funding. That's a major issue. But by the grace of God, I have already started seeing how I can partner with bigger organizations who are already taking a look at the film to see how important it is to keep making stories of this sort. I intend to use that very story and make it into a limited series, to also be able to bring other forms of gender-based violence all together and bring it to light. And I want to say that on this Human Rights Day, let's all, keep doing the work and pushing ourselves, with dignity, with freedom and justice for all. Thank you so, so much. Thank you, AGA Network, for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope I've left you with something little. According to Kempia, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Jumaria. Like, I can't wait to watch your short film. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of impact on gender-based violence. Okay. I think it should be time for our break.
Thank you, Jo Maria. Yeah, it's time for our break. Meanwhile, while we're on the break, you can share with us what you feel, with the presentation that the three speakers have made. You can share with us your contribution, your questions, based on their presentation. Meanwhile, before we come back, and the next part will be having GBV survivors, victors, sharing their story, their life stories on gender-based violence. Thank you. So
Okay,
I'll be
please.
sharing the link. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to say the break is just 3 minutes. Please don't go anywhere. Don't leave your device.
Please, yeah,
Just
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Don't go anywhere, please. It's just 30 minutes, 30 minutes, sorry, 3 minutes, and we are back.
Please grab a cup of water, stand up and stretch to ensure that you don't have cramps. Just stand up, stretch a bit, take water, and join us back.
Exactly. Especially if you have very chilled water, it will help out.